Welcome. My name is Ed Wank. I'm the content director for CEDIA, and we're going to talk about an award-winning home integration in Britain. And we're joined by Stephen Nevison, director of Intuitive Homes. Hi, Steve.
Hi.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
And Oliver Hall, managing director of Ultamation.
Hello.
Hello. Tell us a little about your firms, first of all, gentlemen. You are CEDIA award winners for a project called Cottage that we're going to talk about in a minute, but let's get some background on you. Cliff's Notes version.
Yeah, so we're based in Manchester, started in 2009. We primarily do whole house integration systems using Crestron, Lutron, and work a lot with Oliver and the team at Ultamation.
Very good. And your firm, sir?
Right, so we're called Ultamation. We're based in Liverpool, which isn't too far away from Manchester. We started in 2007, and I started out primarily as a Crestron programmer. So I started off as a CAPE at the time, became a CSP. But then our paths crossed, and we became a full-fledged dealer for Crestron, but with a sort of focus on the programming side of things.
Very good. We're going to talk about this home, this CEDIA award-winning project here. And we've got some beautiful photography of this thing. I'm going to leave it right there because that is a great overview shot. This is a country cottage that was converted into a smart home. And the idea, augmenting everyday living, was honored by CEDIA at the 2018 EMA CEDIA Awards. This project was a joint partnership, obviously, between these two gents and won the Best Integrated Home for 120,000 to 230,000 pounds sterling, that category. And you also won the Global Award as well. So this was stacked up against every other integrated home winner across the globe. EMEA, Americas, Asia Pacific, and this one came out on top. Why the collaboration? Why do you guys, this is a bit unusual, I think, for two firms to work together on a project like this.
All right, okay.
Go for it.
The story behind why Steve and I worked together was I went down to work on a Crestron job for another dealer as a programmer, and that job wasn't going particularly well, so I had a chat with our Crestron rep and suggested that Crestron might want to take an interest in the project to make sure it didn't present badly to everyone. And Crestron brought Steve's company in to help out on the installation side, and we effectively worked together to bring the project to a close. And then that was, I guess, while we were going through that process, we realized that we had the same sort of ethos about sort of what we wanted to provide for clients in terms of a high quality product. We're probably not the best businessmen in the world, are we? Because we're not always looking to make the most money out of projects, but we always try to make the projects kind of interesting and add that little bit of extra to them.
Okay. So who does each individual firm have their own strengths, and how do you split up the
absolutely.
workflow?
So when we met on this rescue project, I quickly realised that Oliver's programming was far above anything I could ever achieve. I think Oliver wasn't as keen on having to do the install side of things, and we both realised.
Yeah, he mentioned backstage that he was cutting holes in a wall in the rain. He was like, "This is not my job."
We thought this is a really good match, and it wasn't long until I think I was looking at the next project that we were going to get involved with, and just thought, well, I could never achieve the level of programming, the functionality, and basically it would make a much better system if Oliver programmed it. So I think we started working together on one of those, and since then that's kind of didn't take long until pretty much all of our main projects that we deal with, we just work as a collaborative team. We've got the guys here doing the programming and installation teams, and we kind of function as one entity in terms of we do design and the scheduling, project management as a team. So we have sort of a concerted effort on what we're doing and planning it all out. Then we have one person takes the lead on dealing with the client, so they're not having to deal with two companies. So most of the time clients really don't ever ask about why there's sometimes two companies mentioned or things like that. That they just deal with one company and get looked after, and then behind the scenes we just work on everything together, and we've got quite a smooth process together now where we sort of deliver the projects now.
So how'd the architect feel about working with not one but two integrators?
Well, I met the interior design company, Janie Butler Interiors, and the Llama Group, who are sort of, they do a turnkey development. So
okay.
I met them on a job, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. I didn't actually realise that they were the owners of this development, and just started getting excited talking to them about Kaleidoscape because they'd never seen it on the TV before.
All right.
And just chatting with Andy about it, and it wasn't long later I got a call and they said, we've got a project, we'd love to do some of this stuff, because they didn't do any AV in their projects at all. And then it developed from there that we showed them what was possible. Over the years, we did more and more things on their properties. And then a couple of years ago, we actually got the CEDIA award for the showroom. So we've got a joint showroom with them, where they were looking for somewhere to showcase their interior design skills and things like that they couldn't just get across in photos. They want people to experience it. So we came on board, and it was a great opportunity for us to show off things like some of the future automation equipment, the sliding panel systems, which on paper might seem like a lot of money, but when someone actually sees it and then says, I want that, I don't care how much it costs.
Right.
So it's been a really good collaboration between ourselves and sort of the Llama Group and Jenny Butler Interiors.
And we're fortunate that the developer works with clients who kind of cash isn't necessarily I mean, everyone's conscious of how much things cost.
Sure,
but that isn't. We're not talking about £50 here and £50 there.
Nobody's nickel and diming you.
Exactly, and it gives us the opportunity to present the project, to design the projects in a way that we can really push what we think is the best technical solution for them as well.
So this modern-looking home, the tech is beautifully integrated into the structure, and not terribly visible. Talk about the process and talk about how you really ensure that the tech match the aesthetics of this place.
So Janie leads on the sort of the aesthetics for the whole look of the place. So this property is actually, it's two main buildings with a link between them.
Okay.
So there's the original sort of 200-year-old property, and then there's this new extension, which is the entertainment building, which where they're going to have parties, and they've got the media room with the large screen TV. So the beauty of working with them is that we are involved at the very start. So whilst they're putting together, CGIs to show clients and ideas of things, they are bearing in mind the things that we would like to do. And obviously, we try and do as many things that hide the technology when it's not needed. I mean, effectively, they would like to see nothing and have all the functionality, like most clients would. So we can work with them to make sure that everything that we're doing is sympathetic to the design that they come up with.
And they're familiar with the things that we use as well, aren't they? So things like the touch panels and the keypads for lighting and stuff like that. We don't tend, Steve and I have worked out which products we know we're familiar with and that are the ones that we're happy to work with and things like that. So we don't tend to sort of jump around between manufacturers. So we tend to use Lutron for lighting, Crestron for the control system, stuff like that. So that means that they then understand, they know what the things are going to look like. It's not like, we're suddenly saying, well, you can only get that in brass, or you can only get this in stainless steel.
They've really bought into this as well. So we've put Crestron and Lutron systems into their home, and they live with it and see the benefits of it. So even when they're sort of vetting clients for us, they're going through the process with their clients and sort of can genuinely say why these things are worthwhile spending money on and why they will improve their lives and things. And they know the things that we would like to do in terms of video distribution, audio distribution, the clever things that we can do with the lighting and the automation of systems.
You know what you can do? Let's talk about what the family wanted. Lifestyle enhancement is something that appears in the promotional materials for this on numerous occasions.
Yeah.
And I think that's really key to the success of this project. What's the discovery process like? How do you determine what will enhance a client's lifestyle, specifically this?
So I think what we always try and do is make sure that we understand what they would want and what they would see the value in, and what they would look back on in 12 months or 18 months' time and be happy that they spent the money on, because we're looking to have clients in the long term. Like we've never sort of lost a client, so we're looking to keep clients in the long term, have them recommend us, and to do that we've got to make sure that we didn't just sell something because it was an expensive thing to sell, or it looked like it had wow factor. There's certain things that we think maybe they would think are fancy to show off, but if they never press that button or use that function again, they might look back and go, oh, we could have saved that money. So effectively, we just try and sit down with them, get an understanding for what we think they would be really happy with in retrospect, and spend the money as if it was our own. We weigh up. Not everything we specify is the highest end, and there's certain things that we've tried and tested that we know this is a great value version of X, Y, or Z, and we can use the more cost-effective version because there's no benefit in. So we really try and make their money go a long way, which is why I think it's one of the reasons why this did well in sort of the global category against maybe properties that were where they spent more money, because we try and squeeze every penny out of the money that they're spending on sort of, like you say, enhancing their lifestyle. So this particular client was not particularly technologically, they were kind of doing this because they knew they were spending this money on the renovation. They knew they had to do something on the AV side commensurate with the kind of property, and they didn't want to, this was an investment for them as well, although it was going to be their forever home. That they wanted to not look back and regret not having done lighting control or any of these things. So we just sat down and worked out how they use media, what kind of things, they got 3 kids, so what kind of things the kids would like that would make them happy, and we try and put it all together and work out how we can provide them a solution that effectively they can walk into a room and say, I want to watch Netflix, or I want to listen to this music, or I want to do X, Y, Z, and they can press one button to get to that effectively, or just make it super simple, because they didn't want to know how many video sources they had or how many things, so they just know they want to watch Sky, and they want a video box that isn't in use, so they just want to press a button and know that they've got access to their recordings, and they're not going to be interrupting someone in another room. So that was it really, just keeping it simple.
And that's made easier by some of the technological changes as well. So, for example, Sky now, because you effectively share a set of recordings across different devices.
Okay.
So now, whereas we used to, so we have a concept of a pool of sources of a similar type. So you could go and say, I just want a Sky box. If you didn't care if you weren't looking for a particular recording, you just say, I want one, and it'll give you one of 4, say.
Boom.
At least now, you can say, I'll get one of 4, and as long as you don't need the 4K one, perhaps, then, you can use any of them, and
sure,
you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. And a lot of this stuff as well has been it's evolved over time, hasn't it? So it's not just this particular project, but we've built up a programming framework which encapsulates an awful lot of those kind of lifestyle things. It's not just about one remote control that does everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's things like tying into the alarm, the intruder system, so that we take data from that to do occupancy sensing, stuff like that, so we can trigger events based on that.
Great.
When you set the alarm, the whole house can shut down and things like that, because we know there's nobody there now. So we try to kind of build on that stuff all the time.
We'll get into events and scenes in a little bit, but first I want to kind of break down some of the specifics about audio, video. First of all, we'll start there. How many zones? What did you use?
Yeah, so I think it was 8 zones of 4K video. So again,
nice.
We try and stick to Crestron DM because it's whilst it's a more expensive solution than other ones on the market, and it can be a difficult one to try and say why we justify that it costs more. We have found it's fantastic in terms of reliability, and some of the remote diagnostics that we get from it really does help in terms of when we've had issues with video sources or input sources, being able to remotely dial in and see the diagnostics of what's happening with the HDCP, or do on-the-fly EDID management, those kind of things. When we're talking to a client and say, if it's the night where you sit down, you want to watch a movie, and something's happened with, skyboxes like that we have in the UK, they need rebooting all the time, and we have other issues with video sources that are out of our control. Whereas if we can quickly, within 10 minutes have sorted a problem out for a client, when they're all sat down with the family ready to watch a film, that is worth, it's priceless to them, as opposed to having to say, we'll get someone out to have a look tomorrow, because if it's not working and we're not there to test it out, we can't tell. So we used Crestron on the video distribution. We used the Sonex, Crestron Sonex for the audio, which again was great for here because of the 2 buildings. So this entertainment building, the sort of the units underneath the TV and soundbar here have some pull-out mid-Atlantic racks. And with the Sonex system that we used here and on subsequent projects where we've got a couple of areas where we actually have the amplification. So the Sonex, rather than having to loop out all of the audio inputs, we just have a single shielded cable between the main box, the main unit in the rack, which had 13 audio sources into it. So we got the 5 or 6 video sources, then we got a 5-zone music server. It's just a single cable to get it over the 65 meters to the other building. So that really helped us cut down the sort of the cable costs, and also the sort of any losses that might be had over trying to run the speaker cables for 70-80 meters. We used a Autonomics music server for the audio server, and pretty much the clients, I think, pretty much exclusively just use Spotify streaming services now. So we set it up with their computer to import the CDs and rip the CDs, but I think they really just use the streaming radio stations and streaming audio services. So they have an output dedicated to each family member, and we tie their Spotify account to each of those outputs. So again, we can simplify. They go into a room and they pick music. If it's in one of the kids' bedrooms, we know automatically which output to pick for them and which Spotify. So they don't have to pick the source that they want and then go and pick a source. They just say, I want a list of Spotify. And if it's in one of the given rooms, which is, a kid's bedroom or the master bedroom or where there's less ambiguity about which you want to do, we can make a default selection on that, which again just makes things easier. They just want to hit a couple of buttons and pick up where they left off. So that's
on the programming side as well. Sticking within a single ecosystem makes it life a lot easier for us as well, because we know things like, we can talk to D and we can talk to Sonics. We're not really worrying about talking to a particular device and the idiosyncrasies that sort of protocol may have and things like that. So although we do a lot of driver development as well, it's definitely a lot easier if you're talking to one manufacturer and they all talk sort of seamlessly together.
So were you in the beginning with the lighting design? Were you guys working with the designers and architects?
We do it's a bit of a collaboration with, so Janie Butler's do a lot of the lighting design, and we do the sort of the technical design on it. So we work with them and make suggestions in terms of certain circuits that we think would work well, working back from the programming perspective. So, on this particular project, you can just see here inside some of the recesses for the doors, they have some single spots. So we have a nighttime mode, which can be triggered from PIR sensors or from keypads, which if it's basically, I think we set it as after midnight, it will just highlight sort of entryways. So you don't have to turn all the lights on in the room. If you're going down to the kitchen to get a drink, it will just highlight the doors effectively through the property, so you can move through the area without ruining. And looking at what we want to do from a programming perspective and them knowing, working with them on that lighting design, we can kind of look at what circuits would work well for the different kind of things that we want to achieve for scenes and different times of day.
Terrific. What about HVAC, climate? You guys are involved in that?
We get involved in control of it. We don't do the installation. Yeah, so that's one of the situations where we end up working with one of the subcontractors for in that specialism.
Naturally.
And every job tends to have a different system that somebody's putting in.
Right.
So that can be one of the challenging ones, because we fairly early on we ask for it. We write a functional spec. So this is one of the things that we do right up before we even start touching the programming. So we'll write this functional spec, and the idea there is that's supposed to capture all of the requirements in terms of audio, video, and the heating and things like that. And you get into this sort of conversation between us and the contractor to say, which rooms have AC and which have blah blah blah. How are you going to control it? We get there in the end, I guess. It's the easiest way, it's just a way to say that. That's certainly one of the challenges with these sort of projects, I think.
Some of the times we're doing things for the first time, like recently the air conditioning and lawn works, and
So
the problem is everyone knows that we can. If they say this can be done, then the view is, well, it can be done. There's not necessarily always appreciation that it might take us a week or two to do that.
And it wasn't a problem on this particular project, but a more recent project. We've been in that situation where there's underfloor heating, but there's also AC in the same area. And you have that conversation with the guys saying, you're going to get into trouble here with things fighting each other. Really, yes, we could program something in the Crestron system to kind of manage that for the client and give them one set point that they can tweak. But really, you're getting into BMS territory here. There's dedicated controllers that know, lots of people have spent a lot of time working these things out.
Right.
So we do try and push back.
We try and be as pedantic as possible on the details of it.
Yeah.
Because if we do that as early on as possible, that's why we have this programming spec and this function spec of exactly how it's going to work, how the touch panels are going to look, what the buttons are going to do on the remotes, all of that before the programming work starts, because people don't necessarily appreciate to do the programming once and then to make iterative changes.
To do twice. If somebody changes their mind halfway through, that's one of my. That's a button pushed. So
for a client that's high end like this, obviously security, surveillance,
Yep.
You know, that kind of thing has to be extremely important, I'd imagine, right?
Yeah, I mean that's another one where we would rely on a registered security company to do, because you want to make sure that cameras have the right coverage and things like that, all of that kind of stuff, right down to the accreditations and sort of the insurances and things. But again,
security is one of the things where we realised a while ago that for the accreditations, but also just network IP cameras and the amount of things that are out there and keeping on top of that. Someone else can do that better than we can.
Okay, fair enough.
On the areas of the project where we feel that someone else will be able to do better than we can, we would suggest bringing in a third party, and we will liaise with them. They can be a subcontractor of ours if required, but where we want to get to the best possible project, we kind of make sure the best people are doing the right tasks. So security is one of those things because of, like you said, the accreditation, but the alarm system, I mean, they had 16 cameras here, which we did all the interfacing so they can get all the cameras on the touch panels. The camera system goes into the distribution, so they can, if they're looking at a camera on the touch panel, there's a send to TV button which will turn the TV on. They've got things with the gate access which can sort of pause things and show them cameras on TVs. So we do as much integration as absolutely possible with them. We're sort of quite demanding with the things that we ask of other people.
Sometimes the conversation comes back from them to say, sort of what cameras would you say work well with Crestron, or it's the same as the heating stuff. It's like, what have you used before? And then we can say, well, we've done Modbus or Hikvision or whatever, and that makes life a bit easier if you know what you're dealing with.
Did you run into any big challenges with any of these systems? Had to make any compromises along the way? Or was this one of these dream projects that...
We didn't really. So
this one's been a good one, hasn't it?
This one we did kind of get to do everything we wanted. I think some of the, not compromises, but the difficulties were, even on these large properties, we always run into the problem that people don't want to give up space for racking and for so, we kind of have a little room carved out.
It's
and then
expensive square footage.
They go, well, that will be a nice pantry. And we say, yeah, but we've got all this equipment and we need to ventilate it. And we need to... I mean, in this job, they ended up knocking a hole in a wall that backed between sort of a study and a utility room, putting a supporting steel beam in. And we kind of had they made an enclosure in there so that we could get the depth of rack that we wanted.
And we have to make compromises like that. The room you can see there is it's like one of the sort of cinema zones, and we couldn't go for an Atmos system there and stuff like that just simply because of the way.
Yeah, and they've got the windows down, and
right.
So that is sometimes when we get pushback from the interior designer. We say, well, we're going to put 7 speakers around, and they're going to be on the walls at ear height, and they say, yeah, but we've got this reclaimed barn wood from Lithuania, and we don't want to. So then we want to find, like, really clients probably want that happy middle ground as well between it looking fantastic and performing as well as possible in that sort of.
I was going to say those speakers were a compromise, weren't they, on the other way around? So the interior designer wasn't particularly chuffed with those, were they?
Yeah, but then ended up, they look fantastic. I like the look of speakers, but
me too. But some people don't. I don't understand.
But yeah, so they've got this sky frame that all opens up. So they've got this sort of inside outside living, and they've got the dining area in the other building is a similar kind of thing as well.
Did the lighting design extend outdoors too?
Yeah, it did.
Quite a bit. I mean, I can see a little bit of it there, but.
It was. I mean, they've got a large garden that you can't see from out of here, but there's sort of uplight floodlights on the trees and some sort of fairy light type things to highlight certain areas.
How did it feel winning the Global Award?
Oh my God!
It was bizarre because we didn't actually realise. So I was there with Chris, and we didn't actually realise there was a Global Award. So we'd kind of thought we thought we'd done very well winning the award that we did, and we thought, right, we're going to have a drink now and get excited, and then someone said the picture's back up on the screen, and like I think I said before, my first thought was they've made a mistake. We're going to have to give it back. It was someone else's or something. And they said no, it's the Global Award. So it was very surreal. Yeah, it was.
And I couldn't make it, so I was sitting in bed with my wife at home, and she's watching the Twitter feed. We go, oh, we've won an award, and it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then she's like, hang on, they've done it again. It's like, what's going on?
Yeah, it was.
Unbelievable. And then I start getting a tirade of tweets from Steve going with lots of expletives anyway.
And you've got co-workers in the audience. I gestured to
there's
a gentleman out there.
Mike and Emily,
hi guys.
Programmers, and
how's it going?
over there.
Fantastic. So I am assuming this collaboration is going to continue with these two firms.
I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, we've done 2 more projects since this, so we've hopefully got some more things to go in for the awards this year.
Great.
And we'll
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
continue.
I mean, it works great for us.
We only have about a minute left. Does anybody have a question for the gents at
Not
all?
you two.
You're not allowed to talk, apparently.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. Oh, wait.
Okay.
We've got the catch box.
I think there's a
and I
couple-
don't want to throw this. There you go.
Particular project. But what sort of cost factor are we talking about?
Go ahead. Yeah.
I don't want to ask.
We can't hear you. You've got to speak up and into the box there. It's a microphone right there.
I don't want to ask anything about a particular project, personal. What sort of cost factor are we talking about in these sort of projects?
I think the total cost for this project was it was about 185,000 excluding VAT. So again, that's why we're in the fortunate position now where we're getting to pick and choose the projects we want to be involved in, and we find that a whole house project that might have been £50,000 versus one that's £200,000 ends up having a similar amount of time involved in it. So you need to do the similar levels of design. It's just if there's more audio zones or more large scale video 85-inch TVs. We've just done one that has
bigger
two
racks. Yeah.
It's more and more equipment, but necessarily the
complexity doesn't necessarily go.
Exactly. Yeah. So if we're fortunate to keep being able to do the larger projects, it's obviously it makes good business sense for us.
Sir?
I just wanted to check, like, in the trends that you've seen in the last 10, 15 years, how do you divide audio, video control systems from the client's perspective? Like, what are clients wanting to spend their money more at? Audio, video, or the general control systems?
I think definitely audio and video is something that they understand. Like even people who don't know anything about TV, don't know anything about sort of the technology or the automation sides of things, saying we've got this, these are the rooms we want TVs in, and these are the rooms we want music in, has been pretty much consistent. They understand I want to be able to listen to music in all these areas. Where we've got sort of more education for clients is in things like the lighting control. So quite a few times we'll start talking to someone and they'll say, oh, I'm not bothered about being able to dim the lights. And we have to talk them through examples of where that would be useful. I mean, I sort of renovated our home 2 or 3 years ago and put lighting control in at home. And even after selling the systems for 10 years, actually living with it and finding out new things that you could do really helped me in terms of give true life examples of this is why it's fantastic. And with my wife, who isn't a big fan of technology and complicating things, it's given me some really useful sort of tips as to how to talk to clients about why they should do certain things.
But
Stephen, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, in terms of the use of audio and video, though, I mean, I guess it's no big secret, but it's all moved towards streaming stuff, hasn't it? I mean,
Yeah, it has,
that's
yeah.
the big change that we're seeing.
It's
Very
all
good.
moved towards streaming, but the thing is that what are the clients wanting to spend more money at? The lighting systems or still the audio video systems as a percentage, or is it like still?
I mean, lighting kind of goes in. For houses like this, it seems to be a sort of, you can't get away from it. It's just an automatic thing. But they all seem to want distributed audio and video as well.
I think with these kind of properties as well, where they're spending probably several £1 million, for a start, sometimes they don't have any idea of how much a kind of system would. So the first sit-down meeting is we kind of say you could spend anything from £10,000 to £500,000 and whereabouts. So getting an idea of their budget and what they're comfortable with, or what they think they're comfortable with, helps guide us as to what we can do for that. And then if we talk about the things that are possible, I generally go through all the possible things based on what they'd like to do in the rooms, and then we see if that figure matches up with what they kind of had in mind. And if not, we look at where there's the middle ground, or we explain, what things they could leave out. And a lot of the time they say, but I still want that. So then they just kind of, the quote, a lot of these times the quote just grows because they get comfortable with one value and then they want something else in it.
But that's something we've spent a lot of time on over the years, is building up a process where we can develop a kind of, a back of a fag packet kind of quotation. Well, not a quotation, but, it kind of gives an indicative cost very, very quickly, and we can almost turn that round a couple of hours, really, isn't it?
And
while you're chatting there.
Shocking a potential client with a realistic figure is not a bad thing, because if they have in mind that they want 16 zones of 4K video and they've got 20 zones of audio and they want to spend £25,000, there's no point. You might as well
You need a reality check very quickly.
So
don't you?
it's not necessarily a client you want if they have really grand ideas of what they can do for the budget that they've got. So, on some jobs we're doing, especially with this developer, they don't have the budget for absolutely everything. So we've gone back to basics and said, well, don't have a control system. Pre-wire, get infrastructure wiring, do the lighting control, the things that you can't go back and do again. And maybe get Sonos or some local Apple TVs and skyboxes, and then if you decide you want things in future, you've got all the
foundation's
infrastructure
there,
there
isn't it?
to do it later.
All right, we're out of time. Stephen Nevison is the director of Intuitive Homes. Oliver Hall is the managing director for Ultamation. Congratulations on the global award.
Thank you
well
very
done.
much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
fellas.
Thanks, Ed. Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you very much.